who epitomizes limitless in a manner that you and I can't fathom. I'm delighted she chose tennis as her career, because she could easily have been a politician or in a cinema industry. So let's start with the beginning. And I don't want to make it mushy, we'll make it fun, no controversies. So I'm not going to ask you any questions that would evoke or stoke controversy. How did this all begin? And what was the one thing that drove you consistently? Because there are many naysayers in our country. You know, I lived in Bengal most of my life. In Bengal, we had a problem for every solution. So that's the mindset we were brought up with. So how did you manage all the obstacles that came your way? And many must have.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for that lovely introduction. You really switched roles really fast, because you were really funny about 5 minutes ago, and then you went into this whole compere mode right now. It's amazing.
No, that's because I asked her, why didn't she choose tennis as a career? Then when I read the sheet, I discovered she was a tennis player.
To answer your question, 32 years ago is when my parents said, we want our child to play a sport. And, you know, I mean, I'm okay to say my age because it's on Google, so I'm 38 now. And when I was 6, my parents said, you know, boy or girl, it doesn't matter, we'll make them play a sport, which in itself was very weird in those times, because especially when you had girls, sport wasn't really something you chose. And when you had boys, they played cricket. So we had a lot of cricketers in our family. And similarly, if I was probably a boy, I would have probably played cricket at that point. But thankfully, that wasn't the case. I was a girl. My parents said, oh, you know what? I used to skate, I used to swim, I used to play tennis. And I happened to be a lot better at tennis than anything else that I ever did. Whether it was, I mean, I was good at studies, but I was much better at tennis. I was good at swimming, but I was much better at tennis. And it was always like that, no matter what I did. And a couple of months into me playing, my mom had to actually fight the coach and say, please take her. And he said, she's too small. She's only 6. And she said, but she's my daughter. I want her to play a sport. And my mom's the feisty go-getter. My dad's the more calmer person in the family. And my mom said, I don't care. I want her to play. And after about 2 months, the coach called and said, I've never seen a 6-year-old hit a ball like this. So that was the beginning of the journey of how I happened to choose this path in my life.
So interesting. Now, you talk about the fact that there were encouraging parents, and there were parents who actually went out of the way not to stress academia, because the problem in India that I've always said is we lay too much of importance on education and very little on knowledge, which is why we have such bright people everywhere around us. And obviously I'm being sarcastic. But having said that, you know, it's interesting you mention your age. Because I've seen 40 Wimbledon finals, and I'm going to be 62 on May 28. You can all send me wishes. Arnab Goswami is turning 27 tomorrow. So you can send him a wish in advance. But it's interesting, Sania, because I've always believed, unlike cricket, and I have a lot of respect for our cricketers, for their fitness, for their game, and I believe tennis is such an individual, tough sport because you're there alone. How did that ever impact you? Or who were your role models, for instance, at that time?
Well, I mean, you know, when you look up Sania Mirza on Google, and I get this question a lot of, you were the first one to do this, and you were the first one to do that, and you're the first one to, you know, whatever it may have been. To answer your question, I didn't have any role models back home at that point, because the only other female athlete close to home that I could really look up to, and I think a lot of, you know, I see younger people here probably grew up looking up to, was P.T. Usha, because she was the only other female athletic superstar that we had. But because of lack of social media and electronic media, we didn't really actually know what she looked like. We just heard of P.T. Usha, you know. So for me, I had to find those role models outside. So for me, Steffi Graf was my role model. For example, growing up, I wanted to be like her. I wanted to hit a forehand like her. I wanted to act like her. And yeah, and then one of the biggest compliments in my life that I got was that my forehand was very similar to hers, and that was someone who I was trying to
Super.
emulate. So I think that today that is the biggest change that has happened, right? Today our young girls of today have so many female, especially role models to look up to. Obviously we've had male athletes, but as females, 25 years ago, we had PT Usha, 30 years ago, then we had Sania Mirza, and now we have Saina Nehwal, PV Sindhu, Mary Kom. I mean, you can name at least 10 girls, Nikhat Zareen, you can name Deepa Karmakar. We couldn't do that 15 years ago. So it goes to show you how far we've come as a nation, especially in encouraging female athletes.
Now, a lot of people, and I don't mean to flatter you, a lot of people look up to you as a role model. I mean, when you were growing up, you had few and far between. When they see you as a role model, what are the one or two things that you would like to impart? Let's say to someone in the audience who has a child who wants to be in the field of sport. What are the two things that you would like to tell them which would help them navigate the world ahead?
Well, I would like to tell, especially parents of young girls, because that's something that I faced and a lot of young athletes in 25 years ago faced was, we have enough people telling us that we can't do something. We just need our parents to tell us that we can. And everything that we do growing up, don't sit like this, don't talk too loudly, don't speak in this manner, you're a girl, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go out at night, you need to come back at this time. Everything is a don't know, you can't do it. So when you have your parents by your side saying, it doesn't matter how many people say you can't become a tennis player or whatever else you want to be, I'm telling you the confidence that you feel and the kind of inspiration you feel coming from them, that's something that I was very lucky to have. And I would love to tell parents today to try and encourage the young girls to take paths that are out of the ordinary, so to say, and don't be afraid, because so many people tell you, so many people told me I was playing on courts made out of cow dung, and we said we want to play Wimbledon one day. And they laughed at us saying that, are you crazy? And of course they thought we were crazy. And we were a little crazy, I think, to dream of that, to be very honest. But here we are, we got to win Wimbledon, So
here is the thing. You were growing up at a time in Hyderabad. I can see Chandrababu there, who to my mind is not only a person